Look like Emma Meesseman is definitely headed to the WNBA. Could she be potentially teaming up?
What happens when you walk away from a team mid-season, expecting the league to chase after you only to watch them thrive without you? That's exactly the situation DeWanna Bonner finds herself in. Once a two-time WNBA champion with a solid resume, Bonner thought quitting the Indiana Fever would send a message. But the only message the league seems to have received is that she's no longer worth the risk. And now, to make things even more brutal, the Fever are rumored to be in serious talks with none other than Emma Meesseman, Finals MVP, international superstar, and exactly the kind of player Bonner thought Indiana would never attract. This isn't just a roster shakeup, it's a story of karma, pride, and a franchise rebirth. While Bonner waits by the phone with no offers, Meesseman is being courted by top-tier teams, and she might choose the very team Bonner walked out on. The Indiana Fever, once written off as irrelevant, are now turning into a destination team. And the woman who left them, she's watching it all from the outside. Stick around, because this story isn't just about basketball, it's about what happens when you bet against the wrong team and lose everything.
Now, word on the street is that Emma Meesseman, has been receiving offers from several WNBA teams. I did a video a couple months ago letting you guys know how the Fever should have been trying to sign her, but I don't think she really wanted to come to the W. Well, looked like she could be very much on the way. Andy Constable stated, as the WNBA itches closer to mid-season cut, down date players wave could be an indicator of teams trying to sign DeWanna Bonner and Emma Meesseman.
DeWanna Bonner didn't just leave the Indiana Fever. She detonated a bridge on her way out, midway through the season. With the team struggling to find its rhythm and the spotlight shifting toward a rebuilding future, Bonner made a decision that stunned everyone. No trade request, no closed-door meeting, no final press conference. She simply quit. Like clocking out from a job she no longer respected, Bonner walked away, leaving teammates, coaches, and fans blindsided. The move was unprecedented, especially for a veteran with her pedigree. 2 WNBA championships, years of experience, and a reputation as a scorer. None of it could justify abandoning a team mid-campaign. This wasn't just a personal decision. It became a public spectacle, and the ripple effects hit harder than she expected. At first, some assumed Bonner had a plan. Maybe she was plotting a move to a contender. Maybe another franchise had already made quiet promises. But as the days turned into weeks and the league stayed silent, it became clear Bonner had miscalculated badly. The WNBA is a tight-knit league. Players know each other, front offices talk, and reputations don't get forgotten. Walking out mid-season sent a message that no GM could ignore. It said, "When things get hard, I bail." That's not a line that gets you re-signed. That's a line that gets you ghosted. It's one thing to ask for a trade. It's another to make yourself unavailable without warning. Teams rely on trust and stability, especially when building around young talent like Caitlin Clark. Bonner's exit did more than create a roster vacancy. It damaged the Fever's chemistry in the moment. But Indiana's front office stayed calm, avoided public backlash, and quietly began rebuilding from the inside out. In hindsight, Bonner's decision now reads like a tantrum, a power play that backfired. She likely believed her resume alone would shield her from consequences. But professional sports don't work that way anymore. Culture matters, commitment matters, and quitting isn't seen as empowerment, it's seen as abandonment. That's why the WNBA didn't just move on, it took note, it watched, and it responded with silence. Bonner expected to be chased. Instead, she became the warning, the example, a cautionary tale passed around locker rooms, and the cruel irony, the very team she left behind might be the one making the most noise this season without her. But Bonner's story doesn't end with silence, because while her phone stayed quiet, another name began to surface in Indiana's future, Emma Meesseman, and that changed everything.
So lads, today we are going to be talking about Emma Meesseman and the Indiana Fever, and this is something that I feel like is kind of a big thing. It is kind of a big thing, and I don't think enough people are talking about it because I think it was just assumed that she was not going to sign. I think it was just assumed that she was not going to sign for the Indiana Fever. And look, do I think the Fever are the best chance of signing her? No. My my prediction is that she signs with the Phoenix Mercury. That is my prediction, is that Emma Meesseman signs with the Phoenix Mercury.
If DeWanna Bonner's exit left a hole in Indiana's lineup, Emma Meesseman might just be the upgrade nobody saw coming. While Bonner assumed her departure would leave the Fever scrambling, the franchise may have quietly pulled off one of the most unexpected power plays in recent memory. The rumors began subtly mentioned in league circles, whispers among insiders. But now it's becoming harder to ignore. The Indiana Fever are a serious contender to land Finals MVP Emma Meesseman. This isn't just a random pickup. Meesseman is the kind of player who shifts the balance of power. She's not flashy on social media. She doesn't crave the spotlight, but put her on the court and she transforms teams. She can stretch the floor, facilitate offense, defend multiple positions, and most importantly, win. A former WNBA Finals MVP with a long international resume, she brings the kind of experience and calm leadership every young roster needs. And the Fever, with rising star Caitlin Clark at the center of their rebuild, suddenly look like a perfect fit. The contrast is striking. Bonner walked away from Indiana as if it were a sinking ship. Meesseman, on the other hand, is reportedly interested in boarding that very same vessel, and she's not short on suitors. Multiple franchises, including proven contenders like Minnesota, New York, and Phoenix, are trying to bring her in. Yet Indiana is very much in the conversation. That alone speaks volumes about the team's transformation. Think about that. A team that just months ago couldn't retain its veterans is now being seriously considered by one of the most respected players in the game. What changed? Clark's arrival. Yes, but also the Fever's internal culture. They've stopped chasing headlines and started building something real, and Meesseman sees it. Her playing style makes her an ideal complement to Clark. While Bonner was more isolation-driven and unpredictable, Meesseman is methodical and team-oriented. She makes smart passes, sets hard screens, hits clutch shots, and plays unselfish basketball. For a young point guard like Clark, having a reliable veteran like that is invaluable. If Meesseman joins the Fever, it sends a message to the league. Indiana is no longer a rebuild project. It's a destination. And for Bonner, who once believed she was too good for the franchise, the timing couldn't be more painful. The seat she walked away from, it might soon be filled by someone better in every way. And that's when the whispers turned into a roar. Meesseman isn't just replacing Bonner, she might be erasing her. When DeWanna Bonner walked away from the Indiana Fever, she probably believed the offers would come flooding in. With 2 WNBA titles, years of experience, and solid career stats, she likely thought she had earned the right to dictate her next move. But reality had other plans. As the weeks passed, her name stayed absent from signing announcements. Teams stayed quiet, and the phone, it didn't ring. In a league as small and tight-knit as the WNBA, perception is everything. And Bonner's sudden, unexplained mid-season departure sent a clear signal, one that front offices couldn't afford to ignore. Quitting without a conversation, without a warning, without even a hint of respect toward the organization that gave her a shot. That wasn't veteran leadership. That was a red flag. Suddenly, her resume didn't matter. Teams weren't lining up for scoring stats. They were looking for reliability, chemistry, and players who wouldn't crumble under pressure. Bonner's abrupt exit raised questions about her attitude, her professionalism, and her ability to adapt when things aren't going her way. No contender wants a ticking time bomb in their locker room. And rebuilding teams don't want a player who might walk out when things get hard. The league watched how she left Indiana. They noted the timing, they remembered the silence, and slowly, her value dropped, not because of talent, but because of trust. Coaches and GMs don't just recruit skill, they recruit character. They build around people they can count on. And Bonner, for all her achievements, had just proven herself unreliable. Meanwhile, Emma Meesseman's name surged through headlines, not just because of her game, but because of how she carries herself. Professional, composed, loyal. While Bonner waited on offers, Meesseman had choices. While Bonner's future looked uncertain, Meesseman's was filled with opportunity. And as reports swirled about Indiana's interest in Emma, the contrast couldn't be sharper. Bonner expected to bounce back with ease. Instead, she's watching players like Meesseman take the spotlight she thought she still owned. She's learning that in professional sports, Your legacy isn't just about rings or points, it's about how you leave when things don't go your way. And with each passing day, it becomes clearer. Bonner didn't just walk away from a team. She walked out of the league's trust circle. Now, as other players suit up for new opportunities, Bonner is stuck on the sidelines, waiting for a second chance that may never come. Because in this league, quitting isn't forgotten. It's remembered loud and clear. When DeWanna Bonner left the Indiana Fever, she saw a team stuck in mediocrity. What she didn't believe in was the foundation being built behind the scenes. That foundation is now the reason elite players like Meesseman are seriously considering Indiana as their next home. And at the center of that transformation is Caitlin Clark. Clark didn't just bring scoring and flashy assists, she brought relevance. The moment she was drafted, the Indiana Fever became must-watch basketball. Ticket sales spiked, merchandise sold out, national broadcasts followed. But more than the hype, Clark brought belief. She carried herself like a leader, not just a star, and that energy changed everything in the locker room. But it's not just about one player. Indiana's front office deserves credit for resisting panic when Bonner walked. They didn't scramble to fill the gap with a short-term fix. Instead, they doubled down on building something lasting, developing chemistry, refining roles, and betting on their young core to grow, and slowly, it started to show. The team became more connected. The offense flowed better. Players bought in. That shift didn't go unnoticed. Around the league, players and insiders began talking about Indiana differently, not as a bottom feeder, but as a team on the rise. And that shift in reputation is exactly why someone like Meesseman would even entertain the idea of joining. Because culture travels, word spreads. And when veterans hear about a team that's building something real, they pay attention. What makes Indiana's culture shift even more impressive is that it came during adversity. Losing a veteran mid-season could have torn the locker room apart, but it didn't. Instead, it revealed who was committed. It brought the team closer. And now, that unity is part of what's attracting elite talent. Meesseman isn't chasing chaos. She's looking for a system that fits her styles. Smart, team first. That's what Indiana has quietly become. A place where young talent is guided, not pressured. A system where veterans can lead without ego. A locker room that values character as much as skill. So while Bonner saw a team to run from, Meesseman sees a team worth joining. That's the difference. And it's all because of how the Fever chose to respond calmly, confidently, and with a long-term vision. In the WNBA, that kind of culture doesn't just win games. It changes careers. And if Meesseman does sign, it'll be the ultimate proof that Indiana isn't chasing stars anymore. Stars are chasing them. On paper, DeWanna Bonner and Meesseman are both proven veterans with accolades and playoff experience. But when you dig deeper, the differences become glaring, and those differences explain why one player is sitting at home waiting for a phone call, while the other is being courted by multiple contenders. It's not just about stats, it's about fit. And in Indiana, Meesseman fits like a glove. Bonner never really did. Bonner has always been a scorer, a player who thrives in isolation, creates her own shot, and demands touches to stay involved. That works well in some systems, especially if the offense is built around her. But the new Indiana Fever, this isn't a team that revolves around one player anymore. With Caitlin Clark orchestrating the offense, the Fever are moving toward a system that values spacing, quick decision-making, and high-Q basketball. That's where Meesseman shines. Meesseman doesn't need to dominate the ball to make an impact. She sets hard screens, cuts without the ball, moves defenders with smart positioning, and passes like a guard. She's the kind of player who makes everyone around her better without needing the spotlight. That kind of selfless play is exactly what Indiana has been missing, and precisely what Clark thrives alongside. Defensively, the gap widens even more. While Bonner could still contribute on defense, her effort and consistency had started to dip. Meesseman, meanwhile, brings elite defensive awareness. She can guard multiple positions, communicate on rotations, and anchor a young team that's still learning how to win close games. Her leadership isn't loud, but it's steady. And right now, that's the kind of presence Indiana needs in its locker room. Then there's the intangibles. Bonner's decision to quit mid-season sent the wrong message. It suggested she didn't. Belief in the team, didn't want to fight through the tough parts, and ultimately prioritized herself over the group. That may be harsh, but in professional sports, perception is everything. Meesseman's potential decision to join Indiana sends the opposite message, that she sees potential, that she believes in the process, and that she wants to help something grow. It's not just about replacing a player, it's about upgrading a culture. Meesseman represents the kind of veteran who can help build a winning environment. Bonner, by contrast, walked away from that opportunity. And now, as Indiana takes its next step, the difference between the two couldn't be clearer. Bonner might have left a vacancy, but Meesseman, she might be the answer the Fever didn't even know they needed. For DeWanna Bonner, watching the Indiana Fever evolve without her must feel like a slow, painful unraveling of everything she thought she controlled. She didn't just walk away from a team, she walked away from a legacy. And now, as the Fever continue to rise, her name isn't mentioned as part of their future. In fact, it's being replaced entirely by someone who does her job better, by someone who never needed the drama, by someone the league actually wants. Emma Meesseman isn't just another free agent. She's the complete opposite of Bonner in nearly every way that matters to front offices right now. Where Bonner demanded attention, Meesseman quietly earns respect. Where Bonner left her team mid-season, Meesseman is considering joining one on the rise. And the most haunting part of all, she might end up doing in Indiana what Bonner never could lead the Fever to real contention. Imagine the psychology of that for Bonner, sitting at home, watching the franchise she deemed unworthy transform into a legitimate destination. Seeing them talked about on ESPN, seeing Caitlin Clark grow into the league's biggest name, seeing fans pack arenas. And then hearing whispers that her old team might sign a finals MVP that has to sting deeper than any stat line could ever measure. Because if Emma Meesseman signs with Indiana, Bonner won't just be forgotten. She'll be rewritten. She'll become a footnote in a much bigger story, the one where Indiana lost a veteran who gave up only to gain one who believes. That's the kind of shift that erases narratives. That's how reputations get redefined, both for the team and for the players involved. And here's the kicker. Bonner likely thought she was making a statement when she left, that the Fever would stumble without her, that her absence would create urgency. Instead, her departure cleared the runway for a better future. And Meesseman might be the plane landing at just the right time. There's no comeback tweet that can fix that. No press interview. No misunderstood narrative to hide behind. The WNBA world is watching this unfold like a live drama. And Bonner, she's not the lead anymore. She's the example of what not to do when your team is building something every day. Meesseman's name gets linked to Indiana. Bonner's influence fades. Every headline about the Fever rising makes her decision look worse. And if a deal does go through, it won't just be a free agency win, it'll be a symbol of everything Bonner lost when she quit. Replaced is one thing, but forgotten, that's every athlete's worst nightmare. And for DeWanna Bonner, that nightmare is starting to look a lot like reality. In the WNBA, talent might get you noticed, but reputation decides how long you last. DeWanna Bonner is finding that out the hard way. Her exit from the Indiana Fever didn't just affect one locker room, it sent shockwaves through the entire league. Now, instead of being seen as a veteran asset, Bonner's name is being met with hesitation, caution, and in some cases, complete silence. And that silence speaks volumes. When word first broke that Bonner had walked out mid-season, most assumed she had a plan. Maybe a trade already lined up. Maybe interest from another contender. But as days turned into weeks and the rumor mill remained quiet, the reality became clear. The league had taken her actions seriously, and not in a good way. The WNBA is a close-knit league. Players talk, coaches talk, agents talk. And when someone walks away from their team mid-warning, no explanation, no accountability, that news spreads fast. It's not just about the game anymore, it's about trust. And trust is hard to rebuild once it's broken. Teams aren't just scouting highlight reels and stats anymore. They're asking deeper questions. Will this player buy into the system? Will she support her teammates when adversity hits? Will she walk into the locker room and lift the culture or drag it down? Bonner's resume might be impressive, but her recent actions have raised enough red flags that even desperate teams aren't calling. Meanwhile, Emma Meesseman is quietly reminding everyone what a good reputation looks like. No drama, no ego, just solid basketball, professionalism, and team-first mentality. She's everything the modern WNBA values: versatile, humble, reliable. And that's why she's in high demand. If Meesseman signs with the Indiana Fever, it won't just be a roster upgrade. It will be a league-wide statement. It will show that Indiana values integrity, chemistry, and long-term growth over star names and short-term flash. It will also reinforce a bigger message to players across the league. Quitting on your team mid-season is remembered, and it comes with consequences. For Bonner, this isn't just a missed opportunity, it's a public lesson. She thought she could control the narrative, walk away on her own terms, and land safely somewhere else. But the league is telling her otherwise. Reputation matters. Loyalty matters. And actions, especially in the spotlight, echo louder than words. The players around the league are watching this unfold. Younger stars, rising talents, and even veterans are seeing what happens when you put yourself before the team. And for many, it's a wake-up call. Because in the WNBA, careers aren't just built on stats. They're built on how you show up when things get tough. Bonner's reputation took a hit that no stat sheet can fix. And as other players reap the rewards of professionalism, she's left facing the reality that one decision can define how the league sees you forever. In the end, DeWanna Bonner's walkout didn't spark a revolution. It didn't cripple the Indiana Fever. It didn't even cause a ripple in the team's momentum. If anything, it cleared the path for one of the biggest potential glopes in recent WNBA history, while Bonner expected her absence to leave a void. Indiana responded by filling that space with something far more valuable: culture, chemistry, and possibly Emma Meesseman. The Fever didn't chase headlines. They didn't rush to replace Bonner with another flashy name. They stayed patient, trusted their vision, and invested in the foundation they were building around Caitlin Clark. That discipline is now paying off. Instead of being reactive, Indiana positioned itself as a franchise that attracts, not begs, for elite talent. If Meesseman signs, it's not just a personnel move, it's symbolic. It signals that Indiana is no longer in rebuild mode. They're ascending. They're becoming the kind of team top-tier players willingly join. And they didn't have to beg or overpay. The Fever simply kept building while the noise faded. That's the biggest win of all. Indiana didn't just survive Bonner's tantrum, they thrived through it. They showed the league that one player walking out doesn't define a team. It's how the team responds that sets the tone. And the Fever responded like professionals. Bonner's exit was loud, but the Fever's response was louder without saying a word. They let their on-court performance, their locker room unity, and their growing reputation do the talking. They turned a mid-season scandal into an opportunity for transformation. That's not just good management, that's championship culture in the making. What makes this sting even more for Bonner is that her absence became addition by subtraction. The team bonded, roles became clearer, younger players stepped up, and now, with the possibility of Meesseman joining Indiana, isn't just recovering from the loss, they're upgrading significantly. That's not just moving on, that's leveling up. For Bonner, the reality is hard to ignore. The team she quit is now more stable, more talented, and more respected without her. The seat she left behind has been remodeled, polished, and offered to someone more capable, and if Meesseman accepts, she'll be doing the very job Bonner abandoned, but better, smarter, and with far more respect from the league. From a legacy standpoint, Bonner's tantrum is being forgotten. Not because it wasn't dramatic, but because it no longer matters. The Fever aren't defined by who left, they're defined by who stepped in, who believed, and who built something lasting. Indiana won big by doing what most teams struggle with: keeping calm amid chaos. And if Meesseman does join, the message will be clear. You can quit on a team, but that doesn't stop the team from winning without you. In fact, sometimes it's exactly what they need to start winning. DeWanna Bonner thought she was making a power move when she walked away from the Indiana Fever. In her mind, the decision would spark offers, headlines, and maybe even a sense of urgency from teams scrambling to sign a proven veteran. But that's not what happened. Instead, her departure exposed a hard truth. Talent means nothing when your reputation takes a hit. and in the WNBA, where trust and chemistry are everything. Walking away mid-season wasn't seen as bold, it was seen as a red flag. Meanwhile, the Fever stayed silent, stayed steady, and kept building. They didn't panic, they didn't chase headlines, they focused on the future. And now that future may include Finals MVP, Meesseman player, who represents everything. Bonner isn't at this stage of her career, steady, selfless, and in demand. The very role Bonner abandoned might now be filled by someone better in nearly every way. That's not just irony, that's karma in motion. Meesseman's potential signing would be a defining moment not just for Indiana, but for the entire league. It would show that the Fever are no longer a rebuilding afterthought. They're a franchise with vision, culture, and a rising identity. And they didn't get there through drama or desperation. They got there by choosing commitment over chaos. For Bonner, the reality is brutal. Her exit didn't damage Indiana. It elevated them. Her absence didn't leave a gap. It created space for something better. And if Meesseman does sign, Bonner's story won't be one of legacy idol, be a cautionary tale. A reminder that how you leave matters just as much as how you play. Indiana didn't just recover, they evolved. And Bonner, she's left watching. It all from the sidelines, learning the hardest lesson in professional sports. You're only irreplaceable until you walk away.